Hi, I'm Russ, an independent filmmaker and actor in New York, and in between the chances I get to do my creative projects, I love to sit down and talk with other artists to see how it is they do what they do, how they take art and use their craft to reveal truth to an audience. So in this series of conversations, you'll meet some people you may recognize, some people you won't recognize, but they're all independent artists, and we'll get in depth in a long-form conversation to see how it is they do what they do. Welcome to Art, Craft, Truth. This time on Art, Craft, Truth, actor Lou Liberatore, another incredibly accomplished working actor who was nominated for the Tony and Drama Desk Awards for his performance in the Broadway play Burn This, alongside John Malkovich and Joan Allen. Dozens and dozens of theater, film, and television credits in an over 30-year career. And in this conversation, Lou generously reveals his beginnings, his personal battle and victory through the AIDS crisis, and what it takes to continue to be an accomplished working actor with longevity in this business. Lou Liberatore. All right, well, Lou, thank you so much, man. This is awesome. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. This is. I'm looking forward to this.
Cool. I don't know if you got to see any of the other stuff to kind of get the idea, but it's basically, you know what it is. I mean, we're going to go.
Well, I know. I just so enjoyed watching you speak with
Bobby Classy.
Yeah, because we worked together. We did that championship season.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. Okay. I didn't know you were in that one with him. Okay.
And we live near each other in the city. He has
Right. Yeah, Bob's a character, man. I love
He's the best. And I kind of knew about the boxing stuff, and I maybe forgot it. And then so just hearing those stories are just fantastic.
Right. Yeah, that's how we originally hit it off, because I'm a huge boxing fan, and so we just would tell him stories back and forth.
I'm a wrestler, so.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so that's boxing, and like my brother was into boxing, I was into wrestling. And so we would always fight each other, and I'd go for it, and he'd hit my back. So,
That's right. You were MMA before it became whatever. All right. So you get the idea. We'll go around your career and stuff, and inspirations and your thoughts, but really it's about like your craft, like how you do it. How it's kind of an actor studio kind of thing, and that's what I love. And just two actors talking about how they do their thing, and that's what entertains me. So, so welcome, Lou, and let me get your name correctly pronounced. It's Liberatore.
Liberatore, correct.
Liberatore, yeah. Okay. And you come to me courtesy of casting director Liz Ortiz, who's terrific too. She sent you.
Right. We went to school together.
Oh, you and Liz?
Liz and I went to Fordham together.
Oh, okay, cool.
Which was just so wonderful about that. And it's just a funny story that we went to school together, and then years later, I was walking down the street, groceries, coming home, and she goes, and we run into each other. I'm like, oh my God, Liz, Lou, haven't seen you in forever. Where are you going? I said, oh, I'm just going home. I'm like, where? There. That building? Yeah, I live there. I've been there now. I've been here now over 10 years. Wow. And I had been, at that point, I was maybe 2 or 3 years. I've been here for 3 years. And she's like, I never knew.
That's the thing about New York that people find interesting, is it's such a massive place with so many people, but everybody knows her. Everybody sees everybody all the time. So
now we can't, we're except for sort of now, we're up and down each other's apartments all the time.
Right. So how you handling this whole thing? It's obviously screwed up gigs, I would imagine. And
yeah,
stuff.
It's weird. I initially, back in March, I had finished a show on March 1st of 2020, and so I was comfortably filed and getting unemployment, so nice and easy, very cool. And then I had 2 jobs lined up that would take me through April into August.
Right.
2 gigs lined up, and that was I was really looking forward to those. And then, the first couple of weeks was what I do between gigs anyway. I just hang out, go to the gym, watch TV.
Right.
Don't do anything, Well, it became 3 weeks, then 6 weeks, then 4 months, and it's just like, whoa. So it's been really challenging. I'll be honest with you, really, really challenging. I'm pretty single focused in that I don't have tons of outside hobbies.
Right,
and things.
Right.
I always paint or write, and no, that's not me.
Right.
TV is like king. I raised on television, addicted to television, so I watch television.
All right, well that's good. It at least gets you a little window into keeping the machine a little oiled. You can watch things that are inspiring and
right.
and get things going. So let's go all the way back, because what we'll do on this is we'll jump around, and if I hear something, we'll go off on a tangent and play with it a little bit. But you're a local guy, right? You're born and raised where?
Jersey.
Jersey.
Yeah, the other borough, the 6th borough.
Right. Well, I'm Long Island. I'm the other side.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm on the, so we'll meet in the middle here. So, big family, small family?
I'm the youngest of 3, so they're just, a good size.
Yeah,
simple size.
All right, me too.
I do have 21 first cousins on my mother's side, so
nice Italian.
In that regard, it's like Sundays at Grandma's
right.
was like an event.
Nice East Coast Italian family. Okay,
100%.
I totally relate. I totally dig it. So, was acting, was art, was any of this stuff in your thing as a kid or no?
Not really. Mom was an accountant, sort of a bookkeeper, so to speak, and she taught Sunday school catechism to the public school kids. I went to Catholic school every day of my life, and she took care of the house and all. And my father was a stockbroker, so not exactly arts focused at all. So. And getting back to TV, that's what I was raised on. They were at work. I came home from school. I'd watch television. Right. And where I got interested is watching Carol Burnett.
Wow.
Seeing her, I was like, I want to, she makes people laugh and she makes people, feel good, and she cry a little bit. And
right.
Carol Burnett was like my idol at that time. And I knew nothing of the business or to think about the business or anything like that. And I did my share of. I was a bit of an extrovert as a kid, little fat kid, dancing on the tables at weddings, and
right.
I was like, oh, he's so cute, and I was just a talkative and all, but I never put it toward a career. I was
right.
we were incredibly spoiled, and so we never wanted for anything, and there was never like a hard scrabble life at all. I listen to all these people who have these tough lives, and
right.
I'm like, sorry, it was kind of okay.
Right.
And so when I finally, like I said, I did some town things here and there, and a neighbor of mine sort of was kind of like our Andy Warhol, so to speak. I always referred to him that because they always put a group together of artists, and he would do plays, and
all right.
I'm like, how do you do this? But I was in one, and I was doing another, and we were just all friends. And so that sort of life was around me. And I did the spring the musicals in high school.
Okay.
But I couldn't do. No, I did the spring ones because I couldn't do the fall stuff because I was a wrestler, so I was wrestling. And,
what was the stuff you did? What was the spring musical?
Well, my first gig was I was the 4th voice in the Wells Fargo Wagon Song in Music Man. I was a freshman. That was my debut.
All right. There you go.
St. Joseph Regional High School, Montvale, New Jersey.
Right.
And it was kind of interesting is the guy who directed the show was famous for directing all the Catholic schools all up and down the East Coast.
Oh.
And he had remember Surflight Surflight Theater down in Beach Haven in New Jersey?
Yeah, no, I don't know it, no.
It was a big sort of deal in the summer. He was head of that, but in the off season, he would direct all these musicals at all these Catholic schools all over the place. So Joe Hayes was his name, and we did Music Man. I was a freshman, and then I did my big hit. I was Bernardo in West Side Story.
Oh wow, there you go.
Hair spray painted black.
They always get the Italian kid to go do that. Okay.
and Joe died like right before opening night.
Oh my God.
Very Gower champion of him.
Wow.
I'm not Gower, yeah, right? And so like we dedicated the show to him, and it was this big, deal and everything. Wow. So that was.
So do you remember as a kid the first time those lights hit you and that live audience? I mean, can you still remember that feeling?
No, it was interesting. It was just sort of. It was very matter of fact in a weird way because it was like, this is what I should be doing.
Right.
It was very like I should be here. Right. I should be the lead, or I should be
right.
the co-star, or whatever,
Right.
And the directors directed me to where I needed to be, and so that was. It was just like, I wrestle and I act.
Right.
Wonderful combination.
So did you think, even at that point in school, as you're getting to be 16, 17, 18, do you think you're going to try it? This is a career you're going to give a shot at, or what?
When I Yeah, because it was fun.
Okay.
You know, and at that age, it was fun. And I had also, with my friend Danny, my friend from my hometown, we would do Godspell. We did little tours here and there. So I got more taste of it sort of out of the school realm, you know. And then when it came time for college, we really didn't have guidance, even though we had a guidance counselor. They didn't say what. I only applied to one school. I applied to Boston College because they had a wrestling team, and I had a crush on one of the guys from my the high school wrestling team who went there.
Follow them all the way to Boston.
And they had a theater department. I went, okay. And so I went. I got accepted. I went. But while I was there, you know, wrestling practices and play rehearsals at the same time, you know, so it was like professional wrestler, professional actor, professional wrestler, professional actor.
So you actually thought about professional wrestling?
Well, you know, not professional, so to speak.
like theatrical wrestling.
That's not that, not that.
But like Olympic, like going.
Don't get me started on WWF. I mean,
right.
But I was thinking, I see these guys go to college and junior Olympics and the Olympics and things, and so that was definitely in my head.
Wow.
It may have been a big dream in that I was a good wrestler, but not a great wrestler.
Where'd you wrestle at? What was the?
Well, I started at 115. I wrestled. I graduated at I did 148 when I graduated high school.
All right.
And I still, I haven't recently, but I still continued it past college. A good friend of mine, Gene, started this program in San Francisco called the Golden Gate Wrestling Club. And it's an amazing, amazing club, and we've always stayed in touch. And he coached a lot of East Coast schools before he moved out west. And I hung out with them. When I eventually moved to California, that was my home team, so to speak, even though I was in LA.
When did you move out there? Later on, or this?
Like 1985.
Okay, all right, so.
You know. But I've continued to wrestle throughout, and most recently I was at the Gay Games in Cleveland, and I got a silver medal for the Legends division.
When you say most recently, how recently?
That was 2014.
Holy shit! Wow!
And that was a year after my hip replacement. So.
Oh my God! Well, congratulations on that.
I will say, everybody, get a hip replacement, whether you need it or not. Best thing I ever did.
I'm starting to feel it on my left side, so I'll take your word for it there.
Go. It's the best thing.
And how did you end up at Fordham?
Well, then, my friend Danny, who was my hometown buddy who did all these plays, he went to Fordham.
Okay.
I went to Boston College, and again, we would talk all the time. And he says, "Oh, I'm directing this, I'm acting in this, I'm doing this." And I said, "Oh, well, we're reading The Adding Machine again, and we're doing it if you like it." And, so after talking my roommate out of leaving after one semester because he had girl problems, I turned around and transferred to Fordham after one semester.
And Fordham's affiliated with like Lincoln Center or something, right? Some
campus I went to, not the Rose Hill. There's Rose Hill, which is their sort of ivy on the walls, campus. I went to the Lincoln Center campus, which is in the city.
Yes.
And it's one of the best things I did because you got to learn the city. You got to learn where to go. You got to know where Actors Equity was and what backstage was and how to use the subways and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
I see so many kids who come from Iowa State who are the best actors in the world. They come to this city and they're like,
yeah, right.
What to do? So that was part of the education, was living in the city.
Right. So let's talk about that. So at that age, now you're going to school, but you're in the heart of it. And are you now going to pursue? Are you going to do that? You're going to do back.
That's my major. Yep. Okay. That was my major. I majored in theater. My father said, "That's great. How are you going to make money?"
Right.
I don't know. I'm like, don't you just give me money? Doesn't how it work that way?
Right.
It did for many years.
Sure.
So yeah, I studied. It was a liberal arts school, so you did had your languages and you had religion. It was a Jesuit
school, yeah.
And but theater and directing and makeup and shop.
So what were the kind of things craft-wise they were teaching you in Fordham? Like, what was it? Just basic scene study stuff, breath work?
Yeah, it was acting one, directing one. It was really simple things. Upstage, where's downstage? Right. Where are you coming from? Who are you?
Okay.
But what was wonderful is that our instructors were professionals. Glenda Dickerson was one of my acting teachers. Dave Davis was the artistic director, was the chairman of the theater department. And when he wasn't available, his ex-wife would come in, and that was Deborah Monk. So Deborah was one of my teachers, at Fordham. So you get you get the taste of they're working, and you get to share what's going on and what it really is to be an actor, and what it takes to make it in the city, and what you need to do, in addition to, the basics of get in touch with yourself and your inner self and your feelings, etc. But the biggest plus for me was I had a mentor. His name was Arturo Catricala. And when I first came in January just to sign up for the semester, he saw me and he went, walked over to him, and I was like, oh, I'm scared and everything. And he says, "You're in theater, right?" I went, "Yeah, how'd you know?" I was like, I can tell. "Okay, this is what you're taking." And he put me in all these courses. Okay. Some of them were like junior and senior courses, and I got into all the advanced classes. He put me in all these. And he directed a lot of the shows that were not on the main stage. So I assisted him on a few things. I did a lot of his sort of one acts. We did a lot of Sam Shepard. He did a punk version of Oedipus, and
oh wow,
he had Clytemnestra in looking like Judy Jetson. B-52s as the music, So he was sort of like this downtown artist before I knew of what that was, right. And that's where I gravitated. And I did one main stage show, but I did mainly these sort of black box shows there.
Well, that's great. So it's a right off the bat an apprenticeship in Manhattan, in New York theater.
Right. And this was all in school. I mean, he was a student too, but he treated Fordham as his little theater company. Right. And Liz, who you spoke with, was a part of that as well. Oh. We did Action by Sam Shepard together.
Oh wow. Yeah, she didn't tell me her acting background. That's
yeah. Oh, Liz was in a few things. Yeah, it was quite wonderful. And but one funny story from there, the play takes place, and they're all passing a joint. They're all smoking. So we thought, wouldn't it be great in rehearsals?
Good idea.
Pass a joint. We're doing it, and we pass it around, and we're like really into each other, and we're talking and feeling it, and it's the best. And rehearsal's over. We're like, oh my God. That was great. It felt so good. It felt honest and real. I was connected. And Arturo was directing. He was back there, and he wrote one thing on his notes, and he turned us boring. Yeah. He goes, "Okay, we've got that out of our system. Let's get back to the work."
Sure. Yeah. Once you're baked, everything inside the baked area feels interesting, but to everybody outside, it's not.
Nothing else. It did not translate in the least.
So now you hit the streets, and it's like at that time it was it was the newspaper backstage. I don't even think it's that anymore. But but did you do all that stuff too? And
I did a little. I kind of dabbled in it. What I was staying, since I was living in New Jersey and traveling and commuting. It didn't give me a lot of time at first to pursue something outside of school. Okay. I stayed pretty close to the school situation because also I was incredibly busy. Yeah. I was working on one show and doing another, and also getting homework that I had to get done. And what really happened for me was that at graduation, Rod Marriott was one of my teachers. He was he was one of my directing teachers. Rod was the literary manager of the Circle Repertory Company. Uh-huh. So at graduation, he says, "Well, what are you going to do after school?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. I didn't apply to grad school. I didn't even." Again, I wasn't really super inquisitive. Things tend to fall in my lap.
That's a blessing.
Or get guided here and there. Oh, incredibly. Right. So he said, "What are you going to be doing?" I said, "I really don't know." He goes, "Well, why don't you be an intern at Circle Rep?" I'm like, "Oh, okay." And so graduated in May, June, and then September started my internship at the Circle Repertory Company, which completely turned my life around. Wow. That's where my whole career started. So for $50 a week, I was, getting coffee for Lanford Wilson. Wow. and copying scripts for the Young Playwrights Festival, and stage managing a show and running sound on another show, and just being an intern. And that introduced me to everybody there, and being in the rehearsal rooms. That was my grad school. It was all on the job training. I was watching how it all worked, how it all came together. And one of those times, Bill Hoffman. This was. I did that for about a year. I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but I did that for about a year. And while I was in that, I started looking at acting schools.
Okay.
Classes.
Sure.
And did a little with the 78th Street Actors Lab with Alice Spivak. And that was incredible. Stephen Sater, who eventually went on to write Spring Awakening, was in my class. And so there's little things like that.
And what are the kinds of things now you're outside of that college conservatory kind of vibe. Now you're out taking classes of, I would imagine, different sort of approaches or methods or whatever. What were the first things that were hitting you?
Well, what was wonderful is that from Fordham, I learned to just take say, let's just say, a teacher taught you a page of things.
Right.
I took the 2 or 3 things that really clicked for me, and then I took something from here and something from there, and that's really what I found myself doing with each acting class.
Right.
A relaxation exercise, or an observation, or really how to score your script. All those little things, I was slowly putting them together, not consciously, but this is just this I'm relating to, this I'm relating to, this I'm relating, and it was just adding up.
Right.
And while after my internship, I became a member of the lab, Circle Rep Lab, and there we had sort of exercises and workshops and readings and all, and that was really another extension of the on-the-job training, because you were with a loose company, so to speak, and working on plays. Michael Patrick King, who created Sex and the City, and all.
New thing? Was it like new with the playwrights?
All new work.
Stuff.
Okay. All new work. That was what great about Circle Rep, is it was all new work.
Right.
It was all so it was really quite wonderful. And even with the lab, and a lot of it was self-created. A lot of the company members would create something, and Michael, along with Dan Bonnell, wrote this play called Moscow, Moscow, Moscow. And sorry, something's at the door.
Right.
So, in a minute.
Go ahead, do what you got to do. What is Avon calling at this time for?
Right. Actually, you know what? It's my pharmacy, and they are the best.
That's awesome.
They just deliver.
There you
That's
go.
all. They just come and they deliver.
Especially in these times. That's awesome. So yeah, Circle Rep the lab.
The lab. So Michael Patrick King created this show called Moscow, 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 and what it was these 3 sisters had a seagull infestation in their cherry orchard.
That's great.
So they called the exterminators, and it was Mo, Larry, and Curly.
Oh my God.
And I was Larry. So we did things like that. We also read new plays and did a lot of breathing exercises and just, all the actor explorations that you have. And so while I was in the lab, this is where Bill Hoffman, caught me in the hall one day and just said, "Lou, can you come here? I want you to read a couple of scenes from this new play I've written." I said, "Okay, sure." And I said, "What's the name of it?" He goes, "Two Loves." I was like, "Oh, Bill, really?" Anyway, so we read the 2 scenes, and then a few weeks later, 4 scenes, and then 6 months later, 6 scenes, and then eventually became As Is.
Okay.
And we did workshops of it, and I had actually turned down a few because I had to work and make money, so I wasn't available to do them. But eventually they came around, and we did a production.
Is that the what year are we're talking here?
This is like 80
something,
84, 85.
And was that? Am I mistaken? Is this sort of the first AIDS related play?
Well, it was interesting. It was the first play about AIDS that made to Broadway.
Okay, all right.
We were writing. It was being written, and I always say we because I always take ownership of it.
That's fine.
We in a way we were, because all this new information was coming to us every single day. Every day,
yeah.
This medicine was working. This medicine was not working anymore. This was out. Change that.
Sure.
Change this. Language. The word AIDS wasn't then. It was still. It was initially known as GRID.
Really? Okay.
Gay-related immune deficiency.
No kid. I don't remember that. Wow.
That's what it was. That when it first appeared, it was called GRID.
Wow.
And then it was like HIV, LAV, whatever, not 1469 or whatever.
Right.
And then it eventually became AIDS, acquired immune deficiency syndrome. And so we were writing history, literally living it at the same time.
In the moment that it was becoming what it was.
Yep. We were in it. And Larry Kramer, was writing Normal Heart, literally at the same time.
Wow.
And we opened within a week of each other off Broadway. Circle Rep, The Public. And Larry, being Larry, as we know, got a lot of press because Larry screams and yells, and God bless him. God, he was the best. And ours was more of a love story. It was a quieter play. But but
And how was it?
less powerful.
How was it received at the time?
Oh, it was huge. I mean, it was raucous and silent. People didn't know they could laugh.
Sure.
And that's what's great about Billy's play is that there was like laughter, butt up against a real horrific moment and scene, and it shocked people. But it highlighted both. It heightened the drama of it. It heightened the comedy of it because it was so in a way nonsensical. Why are we being targeted?
Right.
Why is it focused on us? And so black humor was huge. It was the darkest humor you could have.
Right.
And people were incredibly uncomfortable, but it was also very enlightening and it really lifted people up.
Well, let's take a little tangent here, because when I hear something, I like to go off on a little road, and especially as related to the way kind of the world we're seeing shape us around us now. That's what we're supposed to do. That's what the art is. You want to be uncomfortable. It's supposed to bring up that kind of stuff, and audiences are just too easily spoon-fed the sugar now. It's too easy.
Exactly. That. And we let people off the hook.
Yeah.
A great example of that is Tony Kushner's Angels in America. He wanted to show that a guy shitting his pants. This is what happens when you're sick.
Right.
Not just sort of pretty and hopeful and everybody is all angelic and people say, I'm sorry. There's angry, pissed off. You lose, you become incontinent. It's the worst part of that it could happen. And he wanted to make sure people knew that on stage.
Right.
So Tony was just he's an incredible master. And I luckily got to play Roy Cohn in that a few years ago.
Wow. That's a fantastic part.
Fantastic role. It is one of the best plays ever written. Period. Not just of this century ever. Right. Angels in America you can't challenge me on that. It's one of the greatest plays.
But that's the thing is what our craft serves is this sort of, it's a safe room where you can experience that. You don't have to go out into the world and do it. You can do it there and feel it and empathize and connect in a way. And when you anesthetize that, and I think that's kind of what's happening now. We're doing in this weird.
It's safe and scared. Right. People are safe and scared. It's like you can't be scared at all. I mean, it's we're mirroring life. Right. Mirror up to life, and that's exactly what this is. So, I'm jumping ahead, but the same thing with when Lanford wrote "Burn This."
Yes.
Lanford Wilson wrote "Burn This." He wrote "Burn This" on each page because he said if it wasn't showing his most being at his most vulnerable and most the rawest he could be on the page, he'd have to rewrite it. But it has to be so raw, so vulnerable. He has to write "Burn This" on this. If you read it, then get rid of it.
Right.
And that's what really moved him to write that as well. And that's the plays that stay with us, that affect us, that create the art that we see today that does move us and that says something.
And we're not out there, carrying a rucksack in Afghanistan or anything, but it takes courage to do that because, you're giving it, you're showing that to strangers who need to take it and ingest it,
Exactly. I'm going to show you something that is so intimate. You need to see this.
Yeah.
It's going to change you. It's going to affect you. Right. And As Is did that on so many levels. I mean, there are people. The thing was, it was a hard play to market because we were in it.
Right.
We were in it. We were living in it, and so a lot of people said, I don't need to see a play because of that. Because I'm living it every single day. And I feel that like today, if I see a play about, Zoom. About the pandemic, I'm like, oh, please.
Right, exactly.
Living it,
exactly.
You're not going to give me something that's going to change my life because I'm in it. I'm living it.
So that thing started off Broadway, and it eventually went to Broadway, correct?
Right.
And was that your Broadway debut?
Exactly.
So what was all right?
At the Lyceum Theater? Yeah, I was. Well, what was also pretty amazing is that, well, I'm going to step back just a little bit. While I was rehearsing, we were still rehearsing it at Circle Rep. I was diagnosed with AIDS.
Really?
While I was in rehearsal. And
Terrifying at that. Terrifying.
it was a death sentence at that
Sure.
time. It was 1983, and it was my mother's birthday. I remember February 13th. And I had gone in a few weeks prior because I just had a cold that wasn't going away. And while he was there, the doctor said, "What's that thing on your leg? This little purple thing." I said, "Oh, I don't know. I've had that for a while. I don't know." So he took a biopsy. Back then, it took a little longer than usual. 2 weeks later, I come back, and they made me the last appointment of the day. They closed the office.
Wow.
All the doctors and nurses and staff were in the room with me, and I'm looking around.
Wow.
Going, guys, what's going on? Well, Lou, we have something to tell you. It was that somber and that. And I was like freaking out. Not freaking. I was freaking out because of what they were. They didn't tell me anything yet.
Right.
I was freaking out, just like, what's going on here? It's usually just me and the doctor.
Right. Twilight Zone episode. All of a sudden.
100%. And so they say, well, we have something to tell you. You have Kaposi sarcoma. You have AIDS. I was like, whoa. And like, I'm literally in rehearsal. Rehearsal. So like, it's been in my head and in my being for a while now. And I said, well, what happened? He goes, well, you have to go to the hospital. I'm like, when? Well, now.
Oh, wow.
And I went, I said, I can't. I have rehearsal. And I left.
Oh, really?
I went right to rehearsal, and I didn't see doctors for about a year.
Now that's an actor right there.
That's
an actor.
I mean, I'm like, and like the doctor was in the village, so it wasn't too far away. And I'm walking, I'm like, and I tell the director, Marshall Mason, and the stage manager, Fred Reinglass, and they were the only people I told.
Wow.
And, but I will say, art, theater saved my life because that was my therapy. That was every day I was in that play, seeing those saying those lines, creating those characters. I had 8 roles in the play.
Right.
And Bill was generous. And I was living it every day. And I remember I was sitting on Broadway. The way Marshall staged the production, in the final scene, Rich and Saul are in the hospital room. Wow. We're sort of seated around them on this little dais. And we're all watching this final scene. And I sat there and it went through my head. I was like, you know what? If I die tomorrow, I've achieved every actor's dream. I'm on Broadway.
Wow.
Made it to Broadway. And so I'm like, I'm good. I'm good with that.
Wow.
And it was this moment that I was like,
that's incredible. The wrong word is serendipity. It's synchronicity. Just the way that
happen the way they're supposed to.
I mean, things happen. Yeah,
it happen the way they're supposed to. There are no accidents. No accidents.
So you said you didn't see anyone for a year, and that was the stage. Was that still?
That was a death sentence.
And we're still in the stage where
that was AZT time.
Right, and people are still kind of even terrified about physical, like shaking hands, and it was.
Oh, I didn't see any. Oh, please, and celibate immediately.
Wow.
You know, I walked around like this. I'm not saying it was fun and comfortable and easy, and I was like, oh, hey, I have AIDS. It's okay. I'm doing it fun.
Right.
Yeah, trust me, it wasn't fun, but it was. It kicked me in the ass, and I just focused on the play, and I focused on my career, and I got an agent. I did my first Broadway play. I then moved to Los Angeles after that. It was all like
So at what point? I mean, we'll probably bounce around here a little bit, but at what point is that managed to a point where you can refocus on, like, is it constant going on as you're working?
Constant.
Okay.
It's always there. Now, but I will say, what I say is, I have AIDS. It doesn't have me.
Right.
And I've always said that. It doesn't run me.
Right.
I run it. I handle it. I control it. I try to heal it, whatever. And I was very lucky that the capacity, I wasn't HIV positive. I had AIDS. I had full blown AIDS.
Wow. Okay.
So I went right. I don't take my. I don't
That's right.
I don't waste my time. I just go right to the front of the line. And so I was lucky that the lesions weren't anywhere visible.
Okay.
Nothing on my face or on my torso, my arms, my legs. No, there was one in my throat. There was one sort of behind here. There was under my feet, on the soles of my feet. and so it wasn't visible to anybody. And I wasn't sick. I wasn't.
That was my question, is because you're moving to Los Angeles, you're getting an age, you're working.
Right.
Know?
Yeah.
And back then it was.
I was very thankful that it didn't appear anywhere. And like, as you see pictures of people who've had it all over their bodies.
Right.
Like Cohn had it eventually all over himself, and other people and friends of mine, multiple, hundreds of people who aren't here anymore. A lot of them had, really severe cases of it, and I didn't.
So what was the care that allowed you to? Were you getting some?
It was mostly my attitude.
That's incredible.
Really, I wasn't taking any meds at all.
Wow, that's incredible.
I didn't take any meds whatsoever for about a year, and then that next year in California, got a new doctor, and I said, by the way, I have AIDS. He goes, what? I said, yeah. He goes, you sure? I went, yeah, I have.
You sure?
Yes, I do. And so he took a blood test. Oh, wow, you have AIDS. I said, yeah, I told you.
Yeah.
And that's what I started AZT, and wasn't on it for long, thank God, because that one, as with most of these medicines at that time, we were all guinea pigs.
Sure.
It destroyed everything. It just killed everything in your system to try to get at that bug. So it was just we're throwing everything at the wall and see what sticks. It was that kind of that was the treatment. Until they come up with the cocktail of the protease inhibitors and everything.
Wow.
So. But what I did do, I tried a lot of alternative therapies. Once I got to Los Angeles,
there you
it
go.
all started there.
A lot of herbs out in Los Angeles.
Herbs. Louise Hay. I was one of the early worshipers. Louise Hay, Sally Fisher, Marianne Williamson.
That one. Okay.
Well, they were all starting all around the time I moved to Los Angeles.
Okay.
Sally Fisher is Fisher Stevens' mom.
Oh, okay.
And she started a program called Northern Lights. Marianne Williamson was
Course in Miracles.
Thank you. I met her. I never did the Course in Miracles. And Louise Hay was this amazing woman. Look her up. You'll be blown away. She passed a few years ago, but she started what's known as the Hayride, and it would have people come together and groups come together and speak about this new disease and about healing. And she had her holistic ways of breathing and visualizations, and she, sugar was always bad for your system. In that,
still is.
Still is. So she would. She was also aware when people speak, it's very important about what you say, because your body doesn't know you're joking. Mm-hmm. So when you make a joke or self-deprecating, your body doesn't know you're doing it. So she didn't want you to say things like call someone honey or sugar or sweetie. Be very careful of things like that.
Wow, that's some deep manifestation stuff going on there.
Right. He's also into a lot of visualization, numerology.
Wow.
So there's a lot of things going on. And I remember my friend Louis Nassani was one of the first persons who was diagnosed with AIDS and then diagnosed that he didn't have AIDS.
Wow.
That he was cured, yeah.
Just through this sort of...
This, medicines as well.
Yeah, right.
Holistic. And I incorporated East and West.
Sure,
I took
absolutely.
all, whatever was going. Hindu, pray for me, I'll take it.
Right.
I'll take whatever you have thrown at me. And we were in California. I just sort of got there and learning my way around. Had joined the wrestling team, so I was aware. That was but we were in a meeting once at I think it was Louise's house, I'm not sure, but it was just around a small table, about maybe 8-10 of us. Louise, Marianne Williamson, Sally Fisher, my friend Louie, myself, and a couple of others. That was just the beginning of Louise Hay and the Hayride, which has then since expanded into, we had to go to Plummer Park, which was this huge arena, had a huge sort of a meeting hall. And then it just exploded over the next few months and years. It became an amazing program that you would go to, similar to 12-step programs. You would come, you talk about our fears, and it was an incredible sharing moment, and it was meditative. Did you find physical healing? Did you find result? You could see that your mindset was changing. Well, that was a lot of it too. It was just refigure those tapes.
Wow.
Get rid of those negative tapes. replace it with the positive ones. And it was a lot of just sort of positive thinking. Norman Vincent Peale.
Right.
Really.
Are you familiar with Joe Dispenza and that whole crowd? You should take a look at those guys, because that's kind of the newer version of the newer wave of that. Dr. Joe Dispenza, and they operate on sort of a quantum physics idea that all of this stuff that seems woo-woo is really actually based in actual physics, that if you can change your reality in your mind, you change the physical reality of your body.
Who was that? Cousins?
Cousins. Oh, yeah. I'm bad with names.
I think so, right?
But like Deepak Chopra, all those type of guys.
He was like a cancer guy.
Right.
Like saying, like, before you go to bed, watch a comedy.
Yes. Yeah.
Don't watch some dark, negative stuff. Watch something happy up, and that'll, again, it's all about
it's all vibration and energy transfer. All right. So cool. So you're,
in addition to the doctor stuff, and I was getting interferon injections, which made me incredibly sick. And then I was getting radiation. It was something called, I forget the name of it now. But they were literally injecting my lesions direct with interferon. And so I was like this pincushion with these red blotches all over the place. They were trying everything. They didn't know. They were trying everything they could. And I was too. I was like, go for it. What am I going to have to lose? Really. So in addition to my regular doctors too. So they were like, go for, they were encouraging. It's like, whatever works for you, go for it.
Well, clearly there's two things that are coming up as a theme. One is this sort of, even coming out of school, and not with this super planned out idea. It's sort of like, well, of course I belong there. Of course I should be doing this. This is kind of where I'm going to be. And it's the same attitude here. It's look, this is my life. This is what's happening. Just let's do it. And
I tell you, it's the best thing. It's one of the best things that's ever happened to me.
There's a relaxing bliss to it.
I really mean that. Being diagnosed was one of the best things, because it taught me to take care of myself.
Right.
I was, again, as I was saying earlier, I was incredibly spoiled. My parents just never said no to us, and so we didn't want for anything. But it took away thought. It took away our own sort of self. My mother would always say self-preservation. I'm like, okay, but how do you? What does that mean?
Right.
And how do I go again? And you mean a job? What is that?
Yeah.
Daddy gives me money and it works, right?
Right.
So, I grew up. I started taking care of myself. And I look, this is what it takes to eat, to exist, to take care of yourself. And so it was an incredible education, and still it continues to be.
Right.
We're talking 1983, 37 years later, whatever.
Right. All right. So you're in Los Angeles now, and this is right before Burn This. How do you get back? Are you working out there, and how do you get back here?
Doing some plays out there. I did, Joe Pintaro wrote Raft of the Medusa, which was his AIDS play. And so I was in the West Coast premiere of that out there, and met a few people. And I went to the Groundlings. I studied the Groundlings.
Oh, really? Well, that's cool.
Yeah. And that was fantastic.
Why? Why was that? What was there going on?
Well, because it was just improv, just opened up a whole other, just opened up a whole world for me, and just kind of talk about a freedom and a release.
Wow.
And I was lucky enough to be in a class with watching Lisa Kudrow.
Oh, wow.
And I watched her I'd go to the shows, and I'd watch her create what we know today as Phoebe, character. So you'd watch her put the pieces together and build that character slowly. And that's what it was. It was an incredible workshop of creating these characters. And I met one of my best friends, Randy Bennett. He was my teacher, and eventually he came to New York, and I taught some classes here with him. I've gone out on my own and taught little things here and there.
Let me stop you there for a second, because this is a fun little landing spot for a second. What was the difference between improv training and what you had been doing? Were there correlations? Was it very different? Was it,
It was incredibly different, because you were never, you were always on your feet, and you were always pushed to the next level. You never got to rest and think. Right. As we know, thinking is the death of good acting.
Yes, it is.
It's worse for improv, because there's not, you miss this incredible beat or two because you're thinking about something. You're just going off that instinct.
Wow.
You give someone a situation and a character, and go, and an incredible amount of freedom. And so it also just, it made you trust. It was a lot of trusting your instinct, trusting that first choice is the right choice. And if it isn't, you're not going to die.
Right.
You know, you fall on your face, you have friends around you to lift you up, or they'll step on you, whatever it is. It's all okay.
Right.
You know, I had a major fear of falling because my parents would catch me before I hit the ground.
Right.
So the idea of falling and failing was like, oh my God. And so it scares you, it stops you. Improv, complete opposite. Absolute pushed me and opened and I became freer, and I got in touch with the sillier side of me and the little more literate side of me. You know, I sometimes I think, oh, I'm not that smart, you know, and in improv, you come up with something like, oh, where'd that come from? You listen to current events, and it gets stored, and it comes out this way, and you make a point this way, and you react that way, and you follow the leader. And
I would imagine the moment-to-moment stuff with the people you're working with is heightened. Because
you're connected and they're with you, and you're playing this incredible game with each other, a verbal, physical game that seems to have no rules, but obviously does.
Right.
But seems to have just this expanding wall, because you can go bigger and you can go this way, and bigger is better. That's what I tell my students. I'm like, in this class, bigger is better. Go for that high note. God, we can always bring you down.
Right.
Go for that high note. Go for the bigger. And it's incredibly freeing, and it's an amazing amount of fun and incredibly skillful.
Yeah,
and that's what the balance there is incredibly satisfying, when you can hit a scene, hit a character. And
right. All right. So what eventually gets you turned? We were on a road to getting back here. So
well, I'm still I'm in LA, right? And I went out there to sort of see what pilot season was all about after As Is, and I ended up staying, you know, and that was around 80. You know, As Is was like 84, 85, and why was I back? I can't remember.
First of all, were you getting guest spots, or were you doing anything?
No, mostly one or two.
Like
I wasn't
under five type stuff.
Like I my agent situation was odd, and I just felt I was first with ICM. And it was me and Tom Hanks, and like, who's going to get that
right,
one?
Yeah, right.
You know, so it wasn't exactly about what I've always wanted. I always wanted someone to sort of like a manager, a real one-on-one, to kind of like guide you and shape you in this way. And I kind of really didn't have something like that. And I was asked to come back to New York. Like I said, I was doing a lot of plays. I took some classes, going to the gym because I'm a gay man, and and really focusing on my health. I'll be honest with you. Right. So because it was those first couple of years was really a focus on that, right. And so the career-wise was not consciously, but it was secondary, right, at that point. And I came back to New York, and I can't. That's a great question. I have no idea why I was. Anyway,
you got back here.
So there I was. I was in New York.
Yes. We'll just beam you back.
Yeah. And one of the great things about Circle Rep was that every Friday we would close down the theater and the offices, and we would all gather in a room, and a new play would be read. At 3:00 every Friday. And there was maybe one person answering the phone, but everything else was closed.
Wow.
And we'd pack into this room, and they'd read a new play by our company of playwrights. And this particular Friday was Lanford Wilson's new play. And Marshall Mason, one of the co-founders of Circle Rep, along with Lanford Wilson and Tanya Berezin and Rob Thierkild, Marshall directed me in As Is. And he gave me the script of Burn This and said, no actor has read this role yet. Over all the writing workshops and groups that Lanford has been a part of while he was creating this, other writers were reading all the roles, as they do. They just got to hear the script. They got to hear the lines and words. But no other actor had ever read it. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And I read it, and I kind of read it through quickly. And he wrote the play for Nancy Snyder, who was a company member. And Nancy read it, and he wrote it for Jeff Daniels. Jeff, by that time, was becoming Jeff Daniels. Okay. And so Jonathan Hogan, read it, and for the other role, they asked John Malkovich. And, I know what it was. I came back to read for. It was prior to that. Prior to Burn This, they were doing. John had directed Bomb and Gilead at Steppenwolf, and they were
Malkovich did. Yeah,
Malkovich was directing the Steppenwolf production of Bomb and Gilead in New York, bringing it to Circle Rep. And Steppenwolf and Circle Rep were always kind of like brother sister. You know, they were always kind of like our Midwest version.
The Chicago friendly. Yeah.
Yeah, and so this is the first time we ever kind of collaborated on a piece, and they brought in that, and I auditioned for it for John, and I didn't get it, and I saw it. It was, I don't. Did you see it?
No, I didn't.
It was amazing, and all set to the soundtrack of Springsteen's "Born to Run." And
wow!
Man, it was just incredible, and cast of thousands, and it was Danny Stone, it was Laurie Metcalf, Glenn Headley, Gary Sinise,
all the Steppenwolf
go-to guys, along with all of our Circle Rep go-to guys. Right. The cast was there's 30 in the cast. It's huge. Anyway, so back to that. So then that Friday reading came, and they asked John. John was in town. John read Act 1 in a cab coming over. So we sit down, we read the play. 4 hours later, Lanford's holding the discussion, as the playwrights do, and it was very moving. It was really quite wonderful. And as I was leaving, I had the script, the binder in my hand. I said, "Marshall, this is mine. I'm not going to give it up." And he said, "Oh, okay."
That's it. Just when in doubt, hang on to the script, and they have to keep you in it.
That was Burn This. Wow. And that's how that started. And
so as this thing develops, what's it like to be an actor in a piece that's developing like that?
Well, what was wonderful about Circle Rep is that all we did was new plays.
Yeah.
So we were all involved in that rehearsal room. Everyone's voice was valued. Everyone's voice was valued. And again, not that we wrote the play, but we offered insight.
Sure.
And we talked. And same thing, As Is, to all the little plays I did with the lab, to As Is, to Burn This, there was always that collaborative feel. And that's the greatest part of being part of that company. The greatest part about new plays is that and I still do that today, and I do mainly new plays, but we were all in that room, we're creating together, and we're bonding together through that as well, and even though it's not my role, I know I have a freedom in that room to comment on it, even though it's not my part, and if someone can comment on mine, I'm like, oh, that's it. I didn't think of that. So I'm always open for everyone's point of view, and you take what you take, and you don't what you don't. It's not the end of the world. And so that was really exciting. We started work on it, and we started work on it back in Los Angeles. We did it at the Mark Taper Forum. That's where we started the play, which was a first for us. Because Marshall and Gordon Davidson had a relationship. Gordon directed me in Dark Angel, Michael Christopher's play, at Circle Rep. Bobby Lupone, Mary McDonnell, Tom Aldrich, Joseph Summer, great cast. Okay play, great cast. And that was one of my first.
So you started it out there, and then
at the Taper, we did it at the Taper, and at the Taper it was 4 hours long. And and we were working. I was living in, home was Los Angeles, so for me that was great. I lived at home, and we're working it, and we're getting comfortable, and we're getting used to everybody and Marshall's ways. Marshall was always like, if we're working on scene 3 tomorrow, you have to have it memorized. So when we walk in, we just run the scene verbally, and if you screw up, we start again. But this way you can just do the scene comfortably with, scripted, not scripted. Yeah. We're working, and we're doing the play. And I remember one rehearsal, Les comes in and says, all right, pages 15 to 35, cut them. We're like, what? And we're doing the play, and we're still doing the play at night.
Wow.
We're rehearsing during the day, doing the play at night. So and we're like, what? No, we can't be. No, and we're fighting, we're screaming. No, we can't. That's my role. That's my biggest line. Wow. My character wouldn't say that. All that. And so then we're on stage, and we're doing the scene, and we're in those scenes that were going to be cut tomorrow, and we're like, oh, you know what? He's right. These scenes don't work. He knows what he's doing. Wow. So we did. Yeah, that's kind of what it was. It was just cut and trim, rehearse during the day, play at night, rehearse.
And then when does it come back and it looks like it's going?
Well, it's the idea was always going to Broadway.
Right. So that was the
that was the idea, but we had to do a lot of trimming. But we stopped at Steppenwolf. We went to Chicago. We did it at Steppenwolf. That was about a month in Chicago. That was incredible because again, more work is being done on the play. And Steppenwolf has an opening night tradition where it's open to all veterans. And there's a scene in the play where Malkovich's character, Pale, and Hogan's character, Burton, have a fight in the second act. And we're all on stage at the point because it's part of a New Year's Eve party evening. Well, this fight starts, and this audience gets on its feet, screaming, yelling, and they're obviously all on John's side. They all want John to win and beat the shit out of Hogan. So they're just screaming and yelling and like I was so afraid they were going to rush the stage. I was like, oh my God. I'm just doing what I had to do. But you were watching it just explode. And that was it was terrifying and so exciting to get that reaction.
Yeah, I mean, you never in any play, but a straight play, get a rock and roll atmosphere.
Exactly that.
That's awesome.
So that was wild. It also was a really turning point for John and I versus Marshall and Lanford, because they stopped speaking to us because we kept fighting about I can't take this cut. As you're working on a play, you own that role.
Yeah.
More so than the writer does.
Sure.
You know what's going on. You know how he would speak and breathe and walk and so we were fighting and fighting. It was
Wow.
John was just screaming about. We weren't screaming, but we were fighting for our roles. For our part. And Marshall and Lev just stopped speaking to. They did notes, but that was kind of it. And then we had to go to Circle. We had to go to Circle Rep to honor the subscribers.
Okay.
But that theater was full. The show was going on. So we did it at Theater 890, Michael Bennett's theater, which was 890 Broadway. It's not there any longer. But so we were there for about 2.5, 3 weeks. And John had to go shoot Empire of the Sun.
Oh, wow.
So Cotter Smith came in. And Cotter's fantastic. He was great as well. So that was, again, another sort of adjustment. It's like,
right.
I've only seen one Pale. I've only seen one guy.
Sure.
Only John. And I was still young. I was still growing and with what I'm doing, So that was an adjustment. And then we moved to Broadway, and it was crazy because we had done the play for so long. It was really in our guts, and it was down to a swift 3 hours by then.
Nice.
Cut a whole hour off.
So what is that experience like especially when you've invested so much spirit and energy and soul and like you said, ownership into it, and it gets to the big stage? And first of all, what was that opening night like? And then were you all sitting around waiting to hear what happened, kind of a thing, like we said?
Well, it was amazing on two levels. It was like we were coming in with something that was tried and it was tested, and we felt so confident and we felt so good with it, and we were so in love with it. And it's a great play. It's a great play. And it's also Lanford's AIDS play. That's the words.
It really is. It's like a metaphor. The boat accident is kind of like
kills an artist, kills the
gay artist. Yeah, right.
And then I have one line. Larry has a line with Burton in the second act saying, an immune system. Yeah, I heard it's a good thing to have.
Right.
That's the only sort of mention of the whole thing. But it was very much that, and which I was also proud to bring to the stage. But we came in confident and comfortable and all. It was exciting and star-studded. I mean, Spielberg came to see us in LA.
Cool.
He asked me if I had any tape. I'm like, no.
Oops.
But I did give him herbs because I had some science situation. We were talking about herbs, and he goes, "Oh yeah," because Kate is telling me about herbs. I said, "Yeah, Chinese herbs," and we're talking about acupuncture.
That's great.
Madonna and Sean Penn came,
wow.
And in New York we had Dustin Hoffman came, wow. And I was just like, it was crazy. And I would just sort of pop into John's dressing room. Oh, John, say good night. Oh, hi, Dustin. Hi, nice to meet you. And
what was the? Was it a hit right off the bat? It was, right? I mean, it was.
Well, yeah, it was mixed. It was mixed to good.
Okay.
There was picky thing because there's a red herring here and there, and it's not complete here and there, and John and that the problem with it is that if you have a character who kind of can overpower, Anna, it becomes unbalanced.
Right. It was
Joan
Allen, right?
Joan Allen she was fantastic. John can tilt the scales.
Yes.
And then after that, we had Eric Roberts with Lisa Emery. And Lisa Emery, you now know from Ozark.
Oh yeah, okay.
She's that the crazy one.
Yes, absolutely.
Get the character's name.
The mother,
Yeah. Lisa's fantastic.
and very powerful herself.
Fantastic. Yeah. So she understudied Joan, and when Joan and John left together after 6 months, Lisa came in, and then Eric came in, and so that was a whole other thing. But opening was kind of interesting. Opening week was weird because I had a sinus infection, and so I was deaf, and so I couldn't hear a thing. But I watched people's mouths move, and when they stopped, I knew I could speak. It was because I know the rhythm of the play, the music of the play. We were comfortable with it. I was just like, "What? I can't hear it." It was kind of wild.
So, the interesting thing about, because this is 87,
87, 88.
Yeah, something like that. And your character, the character he wrote in that, kind of became sort of a template for a lot of that sort of next door neighbor.
Yeah, right. The gay best friend.
Gay best friend. I mean, we've seen that a zillion times since then.
Right. And then I was offered a play called, just went out of my head. And I turned it down because it was basically the same
character, right? Yeah.
But at the same time, part of me regrets it. I probably should have stayed in New York a little longer because I went home right to L.A. thinking I'd get onto TV immediately.
So let's talk about, before we get you into film and television, let's talk about the Tony experience. What was the first inklings that it was like, hey, we might be, holy shit, whoa.
People were, I got stopped on the street once in a while, and that was kind of exciting. And we opened around, I think, October or so. And so we had fall and winter, and the nominations don't come out till like April or May. But it really wasn't, it was in the back of my head, a little ego of mine was like, and, looking around, people were talking around me, and you try not to join in the conversation because it's, oh, look at me, I might get nominated. But it felt good. It felt, I sneaked, I didn't read any reviews. I don't read reviews till after a show is finished. And I read some from LA and Chicago, but not any New York ones. But people kept telling me, oh, it's good. Frank Rich said something good about it. And I read them later, and it was very nice. It was very good. So I tried not to acknowledge it, obviously, or because it could influence your performance.
Absolutely.
Who was it? I can't think of his name. I'm looking right at him. We did Angels Fall. Fritz Weaver.
Okay.
So Fritz Weaver, we were talking about something, and he said about reviews. He says, I don't read them. He says, good or bad, they're going to affect your performance. If someone writes, in the second act where he opens that window and looks out into the world, the meaning of life is over. So you get to that part, you're like,
exactly. Right.
I'm changing the world. So
put you right in your head. And as we said, thinking for acting is bad. So that's number one.
Definitely good acting. So I took that to heart. I didn't read any reviews till afterward. And I still do to this day. But you could also feel it in the audience.
Okay, right.
When the show is going, when it's crackling, when it's hitting. And Lanford wrote a fantastic role in Larry, and I just ate it up and spit it out, and I could, you could feel the audience in your hands, following and laughing and crying and being afraid and going on all that journey that you want them to go with you. So it felt good. We felt positive. We felt comfortable.
And that character for you was you were the one type of guy who could kind of take a little from John. You could steal a little of the juice out of it.
Yeah, it was great. I would honestly, off stage, I would just watch he and Joan. That was my acting class. I was just watching them do the stuff. And then for me, it was playing tennis with a better player. Because it would just make you better. It would just make you better. And John is one of the funniest man you've ever met, and the gentlest and the kindest guy in the world. My parents came all the time. My mother had this club called the Jolly Jills, and they were friends who met every other Tuesday since high school. Wow. So they're like in their 60s and 50s and 60s and 70s. So my mother brings one or two every Wednesday matinee, over the course of the play. So one day, Florence, my mother brings Florence Skonovaca, and they're wearing their furs and all. And John says, I'm so sorry about the language. And it's like, oh, John, please, we read Danielle Steele.
The greats, the literary greats.
The first time my mother actually met John was out in Los Angeles. My partner at the time, Joel, flew my family out to see the show. My mother, my father, and my sister. And I was doing the play, and I hear a laugh. And I'm like, oh my, that sounds like my mother. But she's not here. She's in New York, back in Jersey. How about finish the play? It was the same night that Madonna and Sean Penn were there. And so Joel was backstage with me, and the thing about LA, nobody comes backstage. They get in their car, they go home.
Oh, okay.
No, there's none of that we have
Interesting.
in New York.
I didn't know that. Okay.
A little.
Yeah.
But plus, it was a 4-hour play.
Right.
They wanted to get on the highway and get home.
Right.
So I'm kind of like, is Madonna coming? and Joel is back. I'm like, why are you here? I said, for Madonna? I'm like, why are you at the show? You saw us 10 times already. And he goes, well, Madonna's not here, but look who is. And my mother walks in the room.
Oh, my God.
And then my father, and then my sister. It was like,
that's great.
My mother was wearing a fur coat, fur hat, sunglasses.
In Los Angeles.
And she said, because it was like February or March, I forget, it was cold, it was chilly. And she meets John, and John sees her and goes, I want to play you in a movie. I want that character.
That's great.
And so she was always like, oh, John. Oh. So, so we're in New York, and every week she brings those people. His final performance, my parents and their friends bought out the first 2 rows of the show, of the theater. Brought a van with people. Wow. And I was telling John about this. And prior to that night, John had told, my mother had told John, you know that tea scene you're in with Louis? He's like, yeah. His back is to the audience too much. And so I'm like, Mom.
Mom's throwing some direction.
So at that performance, John went downstage with his back to the audience and did the entire play up. So I had to face him the entire scene.
That's great.
Then at the curtain call, he gave me the final bow.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a great guy. That's awesome.
And gave me his flowers.
Oh, wow.
So this is really, my parents were just...
That's so awesome. Do you still get to stay in touch with John and that?
Yeah, off and on. Off and on. We for a while, and then he moved to France for a while, and I think he's up in Boston right now. But it's for a while we did. We're not
incredibly generous, very generous. So let me get back and wrap up this portion of it with when you get nominated, because this is a huge moment. So
huge.
What is that? How did you find out? What was the whole thing like?
I was subletting an apartment in the city, and should we turn them on? Should we not turn them on? You kind of turn the TV on and you kind of watch it. And my friends from LA were on the phone as it was listening, so it was all kind of happening all at once. It was kind of hit you from all over, wow. and you're just kind of blown away. Wow. I felt there was a part of me that said I kind of thought I might be, because I felt so good. It was because the part is so well written, mm-hmm. and it is an integral part of that play. And the other plays that season, and Butterfly, Two Trains Running. What's the one about breaking the code? Mm. So there were some pretty decent things. And Mammoth's Speed the Plow. Wow, was around too. So I just had a feeling something would happen.
Was that the one Madonna did? Did she do? Was that?
Right.
Yeah, she did. That was the big star turn for her, right? Speed the Plow.
And my dresser left me and went to her. I did eventually get to meet Madonna. I went back. She got to.
You had to get your clothes.
I welcomed her. I welcomed her from one Italian to another to Broadway.
Very nice. Very nice.
But Speed the Plow took our play nomination, our director, and our actor nomination. Mm-hmm. So we only were nominated for Joan, and she won.
Right, and John Malkovich was nominated. Oh no, no.
No, it might have had something to do with him calling the nominators between 60 and death.
Yeah,
they weren't too kind.
Probably not a good idea. Probably want to rethink that one next time. So all right. So let's get to the actual experience of it, and then we'll move on to some other fun stuff in your career. But was this the first kind of awards, like big?
Yeah.
Shebang?
Other than winning most improved wrestler at high school. Yeah, it was. It was incredible.
So what was that like? I mean,
Well, it was
I'd be
amazing.
starstruck. I mean, that's
It was
great.
amazing because at that time, Eric Roberts, John had left the play, and Joan and John had left the play, and it was Eric and Lisa were doing the play, Eric Roberts. And Valentino, Eric did ads for Valentino, the designer in Italy, and he came to the show.
Oh, wow.
And so I got to meet him, and he was like, "Oh," and I was talking about the Tonys. He goes, "Oh, do you need a suit?" I said, "Oh, okay." He goes, "Yeah, go to the store and get a tuxedo." So I got a suit. He goes, "I also get another suit too." I'm like, "Oh, okay." I think there was a little more behind that as well, because we've had a sort of a phone conversation for a few months following.
Okay, all right.
I'm like, "What do I call you?" "Call me Val." I'm like, "Okay." Val. "When are you coming to Rome?" I said, "Well, I'm kind of doing a show, and I live here in LA. Like, what am I going to do in Rome?" I said, "And I have a partner." And like, "What are you doing to me?" Well, I got a tuxedo and a suit from Valentino.
That's crazy.
Sad about that. It was just there was luncheons at Sardi's, and there was another event up at Gracie Mansion, and so
did you have your little speech ready just in case? Did you know what you were going to do?
I didn't. No, I didn't. I didn't because I had a feeling because BD Wong was up against me.
And Butterfly, right?
Definitely a lead, but he was. When your name. He was below the title. It was the whole thing on opening night. If you're above the title, you can then choose what category to be in.
Oh, okay.
So Lithgow was up top.
Right.
Anyway, and his was like a lead. It was like a lead. It was a lead. It was incredible. So I had a feeling it was going to lean towards him. We had a lunch a couple of times, and we hung out and spoke with each other. So it was kind of fun.
That's neat.
But it was great and as soon as he and I knew he was sitting right behind me at the event, and as soon as he won, I got up and got to give him a big hug, and it was nice. Right. It was fun. It was exciting. My parents were there. My mother was up in the. I got them tickets. She was up in the balcony wearing her best dress. Dad was there, so
that's so awesome.
It was incredible. Yeah,
so does that launch into like are other Broadway theater things start to come your way, or at what point do you start really thinking about?
Eastern Standard, that's the play. After that, Eastern Standard, Richard Greenberg's play, was offered, and that's when I turned down and Peter Frechette took. And I went right back to Los Angeles, really. I didn't stick around. And that's kind of, again, where I could have parlayed that more into New York stuff.
Right.
And I didn't. I was, again, I'm very, very domestic. I'm like... Los Angeles I have my car, and it's sunny, and I have a pool and a hot tub, and I wanted to be there, and I thought my agents would just kind of usher me in toward television and all, and it didn't really turn out that way. So there was a lot of plays. There was a TV movie, an episode here and there, but not a lot.
And you've ended up doing a lot of kind of the guest star stuff, the real working actor, workman's kind of stuff on a lot of this stuff. Talk about some of when some of those things start coming your way and what that experience is like for you.
That was really after I moved back to New York. In Los Angeles. Well, it was interesting. I lived in Los Angeles about 7-8 years, and 4 of it was in New York doing Burn This and doing a couple of other plays. I did Unidentified Human Remains. I replaced Dennis Boutsikaris in Sight Unseen. That was a whole other drama because what happened with that is that Dennis was in his contract. He is scheduled to go shoot a pilot in LA right after it opened. So the play opens at MTC, and it's a huge hit. I mean, Frank Rich writes a love letter to this play. That's the play. That's Sunday it opens. Monday the review comes out. Tuesday I walk in. So I did get sort of secondary reviews from like Clive Barnes and whoever, and it was an amazing experience. It was tough. I mean, Deborah Headwall and John DeVries and Laura Linney. So prior to that, I had worked with Deborah Headwall as an intern at Circle Rep, and she was doing Tally's Folly, and I would be in charge of her shoes, get a shoe box for her shoes. So I was like, "Here are your shoes, Miss Headwall," and now I'm playing her ex-lover.
Life moves along that way sometimes.
Does move along, exactly. And then we took Burn This to London.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So you went with the cast.
Well, what happened? The story there is that they wanted the original cast, and Joan didn't want to do it because it is a horrible role for a woman. It's a challenging role for a woman because it's all off stage. And you have to bring all that on, and then you get thrown around. And, that's what happened. And so she didn't want to do it. And so they said, well, okay, well then, since there's only a cast of 4, John can come over because he's international as far as equity, actors' equity rules. We don't have to. He can be accepted that way, and we'll do 3 other British actors. And John said, I'm not coming over unless you bring Lou.
This guy, come on now. That's fantastic.
The best. So I came over, and we did a run at the Hampstead Theater, sort of, kind of a off-Broadway, so to speak. And then they transferred to the West End, to the Lyric Theater. And so we were there about a good 6 months.
So is that your first time abroad? And
no, I've been abroad before.
But for an extended, like where you're living?
Yeah, I'd been weeks. I had spent weeks in Paris and in France for a while, here and there. But this was I was there for 6 months.
A working
actor having an apartment at a flat in New York, in London.
Wow.
And what's pretty amazing was that this is also a very big turning point for me. One day I made myself dinner, cooked a chicken. I sat down and I started to just bawl, just absolutely lose it. And I realized I worked, I got paid, I bought that chicken, I cooked the chicken, and I fed myself. And it was
primal.
It was incredibly primal, incredibly primal. It was just amazing, and it was joyous.
Yeah.
But it was like, I can take care of myself. Again, going back to that whole story of my mom and dad taking care of us.
Right.
Yeah, I can take care of myself. I fed myself. I nourished myself, and it was just
right with your craft.
Amazing, exactly. And also in London, I was. That's when I first realized I'm an artist, not just an actor.
Okay.
In London, you'd go to a party. I went to these parties there, and so what do you do? Oh, I'm an actor. Oh, come sit with me, talk. Let's see. New York or in the States, like you're an actor. Oh, what restaurant?
Yeah, right. My busboy's an actor.
Right.
Right.
So it was the first time it really hit me is that, oh, I'm an artist.
Wow.
Oh, I had all these revelations while I was there.
Wow. What's an interesting? Here's a question: Were the audiences and the reception of it different?
Yes.
Okay. How so?
Much more reserved, and I couldn't understand all that movement and spitting and yelling and what was all that going on? They didn't know what to make of John, and
wow,
and all of us really.
These Americans come trampling through the West End.
Exactly. And it was incredible because these theaters are like tiny, and they're historic, but they're like our front door opened into a wall. I couldn't even open the door all the way, and I had this in Act 2. I come back from my Christmas trip, and I have 6,000 pieces of luggage, and I couldn't get through the door with the luggage. So I got this great bit. I just threw one piece at a time.
Oh, that's great.
Boom, and it was like 9, 10, 11. And then I slammed the door, I come in, and then something I stole from Kevin Kline, watching him do Much Ado About Nothing in the park. I would walk in, and I tripped over I would trip over the luggage, being all like, flabbergasted.
Little Dick Van Dyke move there. I like it.
Oh, completely. So,
that's awesome. So at some point during all of this, did you ever hearken back to watching those before a live audience, Carol Burnett's, and going, I'm kind of doing that. I'm kind of.
I felt related to her. I felt like we were together in this. Like you started me, and then now I'm doing it. So yeah, I still do. I still like it. Whenever those like they're trying to sell a Carol Burnett video, I'll always watch it. Yeah.
All right, so let's get to the film and television part, and then I want to finish up a little bit with
Sure.
Because you're a teacher and you can really articulate the craft too. So that's what I'm really interested in. But so film and television stuff, what were some of the highlights for you, and what is explain to folks out there who might not understand, because we've done this in a lot of podcasts, but explain some of the difference, between those two types of disciplines.
Well, first, there's not a lot. I don't have a lot of TV and film experience. I'm still working on that as well. And I'm a real, a theater rat from one. Though one of the biggest experiences for me was, the first TV experience for me was Who's the Boss?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Tony Danza. And that was the first time I read, I auditioned, and I felt, you feel you got it. I got this. It was down. There was not a question. There wasn't a second thought. No doubt. I got it. And I turned around and I got it. I was like, perfect, great. And Tony, as it turns out, Tony, who's the boss? Tony is. And if you notice, there weren't a lot of male co-stars on that show. It was Tony. And as it turned out, which was a funny story, is that my ex, my partner at the time, Joel, he's from East New York. Tony's uncle was his mailman.
Wow, that's bizarre.
But even better, Tony was a wrestler, and he had a wrestling scholarship out, I think Iowa, I forget, somewhere in the Midwest.
Okay.
So I told him I was a wrestler. Anyway, long story short, I had 2 scenes. All of a sudden, I had 3 scenes. Quite nice, which was great. And this was the 6th. I think it ran 6 or 7 seasons. This was the 6th season. Amanda, the Alyssa Milano character, was going back to college.
Okay.
And I mistake her for a student because Tony. I don't know. Actually, I got it wrong. Tony was going back to college. She was just carrying his books at the bookstore. I mistake her for a student. She kind of gets goo-eyed over me and comes to my class. And it's all about reading and reading Wuthering Heights. So it was an educational episode. It was great, and it was funny too. It was good. And also Catherine Hellman was a neighbor of mine at that time. She lived down the block, the best house on the block in L.A. where I live. That was nice.
So walking into that situation as a theater actor, I mean, it's first of all the pace and the speed of what you got to do is different.
And thank God for Judith Light, because she took me by the hand and said, "Let me introduce you to everybody. This is how we do it. This is how you enter the door. This is where you stand. This is where we."
Wow.
So Judith, Judith just took me and walked me through.
Wow.
Because
Okay.
she's a theater rat as well.
Okay.
And she has since become a really good friend.
Wow.
She and her husband Robert, and we've been friends for years since that. And Catherine, I got to even be friendlier with her while she was
that was that one of those live audience deals too? All right, so at least it had.
Well, what was great about this, it was a week. I got hired for a week. Right. Monday we have a read through. We're done by 11 o'clock. You go home. Tuesday, so that you finish the read through, all the writers get up and run over to Tony. Whatever. Tuesday we come in with blue pages or green. I don't know what the second page is. Right. And the changes are in the script, and we read it. So it goes a little longer, and there's some costume fittings, and you're out by noon. Wednesday, Tony golfs. We don't work. Thursday.
That's great.
Thursday, camera blocking. Friday, we shoot 2 episodes. I was home by Jeopardy.
Wow.
It was a well-oiled machine. It was, and you were just thrown in, and you just go with what they do. And they would just, again, Judith would just hold my hand and go, "No, turn here. You'll get a laugh this way." I'm like, "Okay."
Wow, that's great. Now that's different from the episodics. Like the Law and Orders and the
Law and Order, and that was another well-oiled machine. That if you fuck up, oh my God, you have no rehearsal. You're just thrown in. And I was just like the few that I had. I played the same character for a couple of episodes. Right. This lawyer, Dale Brody, and the first one was I had a few scenes. The second time it was like one scene with McCoy and a judge and all. And I just remember I was rehearsing with no one, and I was just so freaked out of it because you're just alone by yourself in this trailer, and then they throw you into the thing, and you have to sink or swim, you know.
Wow.
And so it's very, very different. And then the last one I did 3 Law and Orders. The last one I did was with the later years with what's his name, Anthony Anderson.
Oh, okay,
and
right.
Jeremy
Sisto, right?
Yeah, and I had worked with Jeremy's sister. I think. Yeah, I did. Well, I'll tell you the stories. It's a movie story. But anyway, so that one was a little easier. You know, it was a little slower pace, so it was okay. But with Law and Order, they just throw you in.
So those guest spots are you go on, they stick you in thing, and it's like ready, go.
That's all it is.
Your brother died, and start crying.
Cry. Yeah, right. Wow. Shoot him. Yeah, die. Things like that. Like, oh, okay.
Wow.
So those are trial by fire. Because that is a machine that has been running and running and running and so well oiled, and you just kind of have to slip in, and if you don't,
And is that now the third one? Is that different from say like the? Didn't you do like the Nurse Jackies and that kind of thing?
I did Nurse Jackie. Nurse Jackie was great because they loved theater actors.
Okay.
So that and I remember with that I wasn't with I was with another guest star. It was just the two of us, and it was just an office scene. But all the creators would come around, and hang out with us, and talk to us, and say how much they loved the theater. And it was December. It was right before the Christmas break, and it was literally the last scene of the day of the season.
So they're partying
on a break,
right?
And I'm like, oh fuck! If I make a mistake, they're gonna all be groaning like, ugh. No, they were the greatest. They were just all this. The crew. Again, in movies, you see the film, just the two of you in the scene, but there's about 50 people all around you with the lights, with the cameras, with the assistants, and the third and the fourth, and all that, all around you. And all I can worry about was, the Teamsters hate me because I just a whole lot after shoot again. But they were great.
So that's a different vibe. That's a different vibe than like a network. It's more like a movie set.
Right, exactly that, because it was HBO or
Showtime, I think,
something like that.
That's awesome.
But that was different. The Good Wife was quite good. Roxanne Dawson was the director on The Good Wife, and I just had to cry. So I had my scene was coming up after lunch, and I didn't want to eat, so I missed this great meal because I was getting into my character. It was a disbarred lawyers anonymous meeting.
Oh my God.
And I had to cry and I was like the only one in the meeting. It was a very sad scene.
So
on many levels.
So speaking craft in all these situations, because they're so tight, and so it's not like your 6-week rehearsal process in the theater, blah, blah, blah. And the directors that come on these they're different. They're just fly-in directors. They do.
And some of them talk to you, some of them don't.
That's my question. Are they giving you is there any kind of...
Everyone's completely different. Some directors just sit in front of a monitor and tell someone else to tell you, move your arm to the left. Because you're as important as a lighting piece of lighting instrument. Right. And other like Nurse Jackie we would talk, and so that was a nice communication there, which was wonderful. I did a show called I did Blind Spot. It was their final season, and it was less than ideal because it was like directing as I'm speaking. They put an earpiece in me with music playing.
Oh my God!
And I had to make these physical. I was sort of giving signals with my hands.
Wow.
And like, oh, don't do that one because he's like, don't do that because the light's in the way. It's like, okay, so I can only use my left hand, but not too high. And it was like, as I'm speaking, I'm like, and I'm trying, and it was a huge monologue, and so I had 9 things coming at me. I was like, that was a Friday, and I had to come back the next week to shoot. And I called my agent. I said, have you ever heard of anyone getting fired over the weekend in the middle? I said, because I was just so afraid, I couldn't come back. And I got back to that next day, that following week, and I was talking to the makeup. They said, "Oh, Lou, trust me, you're not the only one. It's him. It's all about." They know how you're feeling. All the actors feel the same way. This director just was not.
So I guess
couldn't care less about the acting.
So I guess you'll never do newscasting. You'll never have that earpiece.
Oh my God! Right, because
they're just talking to you constantly.
Like what? What do you say? Who you?
Now you know how Brando did it. He just stuck the thing in there, and somebody fed him his line.
It was insane.
That's insane.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about you mentioned you skipped lunch to get into your character. Let's segue now into the actual craft. You teach. When did you start doing that, and what is the kind of the thrust of what you're?
Well, it started with the Groundlings. I did improv, and Laura Henry is a director, acting teacher, acting coach out in Los Angeles. She directed me in After the Medusa, and she opened up an acting school, and so I was on her staff teaching improv because it was a section that she wasn't versed in, and so she asked me to be a part of it, and so that's how that started. And I would just teach classes. I just taking from what I learned with the Groundlings. I then moved back to New York, and I kind of did some private coaching, just some sort of one-on-one things, and just what I've learned about scene study or monologues, and and just helping actors kind of create that. But it was here or there. It wasn't really steady. And then a few years ago, a friend of mine has a company that these students come from all over the country and all over the world. They come to the city and they'll see shows And while they're in town seeing a show, they'll take a workshop, whether it's acting or dancing or singing or orchestra or whatever, and it's taught by Broadway professionals. And so my main focus is the improv classes, and they go from 10 in a class to sometimes 40.
Oh, wow.
And they go from like middle school to college.
Oh, wow.
And I had I had 7 guys from South Africa one day. And it's 90 minutes. And I'm like, what am I going to, I'm like, I just run out of things to do. And I'm like, do it again, ask questions.
Oh, wow.
Then we also do scene stuff. And a lot of it is just trying to get them to understand what the scene's about, what they want. Ultimately, what do you want?
Right. Your objective.
You want the scene. That's your objective. You may not get it.
Right.
Or you may get it. But how we get there.
Right.
And it's all that basic stuff that I also learned with Bill Esper. Bill Esper was my teacher for a couple of years, and again, one of the greatest things I ever learned. And what was wonderful about him is that it applied to film, theater, and television. All the work is the same. Mm-hmm. What is your character saying? What are other characters saying about you? Where are you coming from? Where are you going to? What do you want? What are your needs? Those questions are always the same.
Right.
Then how you score your script. You break things into beats. How to get into a beat. What moment is here? What are your actions? There are all these active things. So that can apply to a film script, TV script, play.
Right.
So that is always the same. That work is always the same. Now, as we said before, theater, sometimes you have 4 weeks.
Right.
Film and TV, you have like this much time, and so you have to kind of condense it and kind of do a Reader's Digest version of it, just get to the point.
Right.
But what that does is that it pushes you, and this is where the improv training comes in. You go with that instinct. You go with that first instinct.
Right.
And you have it, and you also have to remember there is another person in the scene.
Yeah.
So you have all that in you, and then someone's going to speak to you, and you've got to react honestly and truthfully to what they're saying and what they're doing. So it's just a very condensed version in film and television.
Right. And also you mentioned like you like to take your students or if you're directing a piece, start them up here, in theater land, and then you get direct them down. So eventually that's where we get when the frame is this big. Right.
Exactly.
All that stuff has got to be
right. Yeah. Right. And again, what I've learned, I'm still learning. Trust me, film and TV. What's going on? It's behind the eyes. Really, what's going on? You don't have to kind of go, and,
right.
What? That's to hit the back row at the Lyceum. Sure. You'll need that. But on film and TV, it's just a thoughtful moment. Or a funny moment in your head, or whatever, will you'd be amazed how much it conveys.
Yeah,
how much it crosses.
Well, I was once told, the one thing I was taught one time was the camera never blinks, so it's looking at you, it's seeing things that you can't see this close. I mean, it's just it's always open, so it's going to capture everything if you're truthful. And I guess the talent really, I mean, like you said, the work is the same. It's what's literally going on in the scene. What does your character want? Where did you come from? Blah blah blah. But the talent is how are you going to get what you want? Like that. Yeah. It's the choice there that makes the actor, right?
And also, what makes you special? What makes you you? Why did you get the role? Right. Because what you bring to it. You're always going to bring a part of yourself to every role, every single role. Your experiences, your ups and your downs, etc. And you can't compare it to someone else's.
Right.
Because that's their experience. They can do the exact same scene, same line, same costume, same movement. But if the scene's about oranges and you love oranges and the other one hates oranges,
right.
That point of view, your point of view,
right.
That's what determines the differences, and that's what determines where you're going, what you're coming from, what you're bringing to that table, into that scene.
Right.
Point of view is important.
All right, Lou. So to wrap it up, what is it? What is it that's you? What is that thing that you're bringing? That why are we grabbing? Why are we casting Lou all the time? And what do you think? That
recently, not so much. We're not casting.
But I mean, what is that of all this journey that you've been on? Tragic and difficult in those but you did it with such positive mindset that it literally healed your life, and that all this stuff that you've brought to it. What is that unique thing that is you that we see?
I think there's a survivor mentality inside me, and not letting something stop me or get in my way. I'll either go through it or go over it or go around it or tip somebody or buy somebody off to them. And I think my sense of humor, I'm always finding the funny in something, even in the darker scenes, even the heavier scenes. And I think that helps me bring those aspects of whatever character I'm playing to light, gives them another dimension.
Right.
So there's always sort of a wry or a comic look at the situation,
Right.
at the world, whatever this character is, whether he be an art restorer like one of the shows I did, or a teacher. You're going to bring that perspective in. But I've always had sort of a comical look at the world.
Right.
With this big funny thing that we're a part of. And even though it's a deathly serious scene, and I'm with you, and I'm in that moment with you, there is this underlying, I don't want to say levity, but there's a lightness as well that shines through, that keeps me going, that keeps you going. Otherwise, you'd be suicidal. Right. If I ever heard a story that somebody who got, who was diagnosed with AIDS and doing a play about AIDS on Broadway, how are you alive?
Right.
And that's, and a lot of that, I'll be honest with you, is my mother. My mother was, I always like to say, my mother would look at a glass half empty, or half full. Mm-hmm. She'd see it as half full, and there's always plenty enough left for soup.
What a great line. That's awesome.
That's my mother. That's I definitely take it from her. Also, she was like, she would talk to anybody and just always feels like this is where she belongs.
Right.
And so I feel that this is everywhere I am is where I belong.
Well, it certainly comes through here, man. And I appreciate you giving me this much time. One last little thing. Where do people find you? Where are, your websites and whatnot?
Well, I don't have a website, unfortunately. I'm working on that, but I'm on Twitter and Instagram. I honestly haven't looked at Facebook in about 3 months. It's the best thing I've ever done.
Yeah. Right.
I got a new phone and I didn't put it on, and it's great. So
right.
Twitter is good, and my name, on Twitter, and Lou Liberatore Instagram, and I'm a member of the Ensemble Studio Theater, so go on there and you can find my
and you mentioned a couple of gigs. Were anything on the horizon when all this clears?
There's always some talk about some a good friend of mine from way back high school days, David Simpatico, had wrote this incredible play about Oscar Wilde meeting Walt Whitman.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's a great play. It's a great play. And so we've been doing a ton of reading of me playing Whitman. Wow. And so I'm hoping that's going to come to fruition sometime soon.
All right. Well, I hope we see you out there again. You're a major talent, and you've had just an inspiring career. And I super appreciate you giving me all this time.
This was a joy, Russ. I can't tell you such. It was wonderful. Thanks so much for asking me. And I had a blast. So.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right, Lou. Thank you so much, man. Stay healthy, okay?
You too. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.